Blog Talk Radio.
To you, my Yah, do I lift up my soul. And trusting you, he always kept me whole. And left my enemies deep in their holes. Let none that wait on Yahweh be ashamed. But shame on those who sin without a cause. Show me your ways, please teach me your laws. Oh Elohim of my salvation, I'm staying down and patient. As a child, all the while I'm waiting. Remember not the sins of my youth. Lead me in your truth, and he'll give your soul ease. The earth shall remain inherited by a seed. The secret of Yah's will who fears Elohim, or who believes everything. And to every word spoken, you can't take heed unless you hear somebody curse. You know you did the same thing. That's why I'm begging Yah for mercy and His love and kindness, cause I know that I ain't worthy.
The seven seas, captivity is taking hold upon me. Put frighten me and now we flee from fallen leaves. The grinding grief from all the blood our people seen. And now we cry, where is the word from Elohim? And so we said that we always wise to be submissive, but we dismiss it. It is of this reason we have fallen victim to the lies that your root will prey and pursue. Rebellious of the Son, forgotten that He is one. Broken the holy ordinance, rejection of reproof. Then acknowledge what we do. Now we return back to the truth.
Yah's word is the truth. Yah's decrees is the proof. Local 12 just released the scoop. It's the summer of Sam. They calling it Pam. Made us worship the Son of Man. And somehow that the moon, they stole our style and gave it to Rothschild. Now we exalt the vow, but hit the turnstile. Yah's now be set to crooked things straight. Praise Yah from the rising to the evening to the closing the gate. Exposing the fake. Yah give the truth a day break. Now the liars can't escape and the haters can't relate to the light the truth make. See the wicked's pride deflate. You adore Yah, magnify Yah, cause He's great.
Shalom, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, giving all praise and honor to the creator of the heaven, the earth, the sea, and all that is therein is, but saying hallelujah. Praise the mighty Yah. Yah is righteous. Yah is holy. And let Yahweh be magnified. Once again, the Creator has allowed us to come before you another day, another night, bringing to you nothing but the truth. My name is Mowreh IshYAH of the House of Israel, located right here in Cincinnati, Ohio, 1907 Vine Street, bringing to you nothing but the truth. And yes, it is true. All we're going to do is tell you the truth, for Yah ordained me to tell you the truth, and this is what I'm going to do. And who is this Yah? Yah is the creator of the heaven, the earth, the sea, and all that is therein is. Yah is the Elohim of our fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, Yitzhak, and YIsraEL, whom you may know as Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Yah is our king. He's our judge. He's our lawgiver. And Yah is our only Savior, and not just of Israel. Yah is the Savior of the world. And once again, I praise the mighty Yah once again for allowing us to come before you to bring to you his great, holy, and exalted words. This week we've been dealing with understanding the heart. We did a part 1, a part 2, and now we on part 3 of understanding the heart. And I don't know how many parts we will end up doing, to be quite frank, because there's a lot to the heart. It's a lot of things that we must understand if we indeed want to meet our Maker. And we will meet our Maker. For the Creator said every knee shall bow and every tongue shall swear. So we will meet our Maker. So let us discover, let us talk about, let us understand the heart. It's not irony that we on part 3. What do 3 represents? Well, 3 represents Yahweh's servant. And as Yahweh's servant, as stated before, Yahweh is looking for a certain type of heart. We read it with the kings, where Yahweh said he saw a man after his own heart. And we know who that man was. That was none other than King David. And we read about him. And we read about him because we knew that this man, according to the scriptures, had a perfect heart with Yah, following all the commandments, everything that Yahweh commanded him, not deviating one bit, with the exception of Uriah the Hittite. Very good record. Then we even seen in understanding the heart, part 2, how Yahweh will rise up many instruments other than the king that will stand before us to show us what type of heart that we need to have, whether it's righteousness, as in the case of Noah, Daniel, and Job. Or what about Abraham, Yahweh's friend? And Moses, where Yahweh said there wasn't a prophet that Yahweh knew face to face as a man speak unto his friend. There was no prophet like Moses that Yahweh would do such a thing. But what made these men so special is their heart. They had a certain type of heart. Why else would Yahweh take the time to visit a man and to talk to a man on earth? That man will have to surely be special. And they are. And they were. And it all lies. Their special nature all lies in the heart. This is why we must understand the heart. But let me show you what was in their heart that made them so special. Go to the book of Isaiah so you can see this. I think you're going to find it in the book of Isaiah 51. See, today, any and everybody, they can make excuse. They can come up with all kind of reasons why they refuse to disobey Yahweh, not to listen to him. And these excuses sound good. They actually sound good. But I'm going to show you these excuses are no good at all. Watch what the Creator said in the book of Isaiah 51, Understanding the Heart, Part 3. This is what it says in Isaiah 51 and 1. Listen to me, you that follow after righteousness, you that seek Yahweh. Now, who want to follow after righteousness but somebody that is right, good? Look unto the rock wherefrom you were hewn, and to the hole of the pit wherefrom you were dug. Because we came from somewhere. We do have a past, an origin, an ancestry, a history. Don't let nobody tell you you came from apes. That's not your ancestry. That's not your history. Don't let nobody tell you you just came from some Big Bang theory. You have a birth of nativity. Second verse. Look to Abraham your father. And why is that so hard? What's so hard about doing that? Look to Abraham your father, and to Sarah that bore you. For I called him alone, and blessed him, and increased him. And since Yahweh wants us to look unto Abraham, should not that something that we should do? So let's look. Let's look unto Abraham. so we can see exactly what Yahweh wanted us to see. What made him so special, so peculiar, so unique, that he would choose him. And since Yahweh said he's not a man, he does not see as man see. He said man look on an outer appearance, but Yahweh look it on the heart. And it's not irony as we go to look at Abraham that we will not see anything physical. We can't even see Abraham. All we can do is see how this man was. No physical manifestation. We have to look at the word to see him. And watch what the words say, so you can understand the very thing that was in this man's heart that Yahweh loved so much. And you're going to see why Yahweh loved him, why he chose him, so that you can see what you must become. Understanding the heart. Watch what it says. We're going to start in the book of Genesis, the 18th chapter. Since it said, look at Abraham, this is what we're going to do. And watch what it says. In the book of Genesis, the 18th chapter, the very first verse. And Yahweh appeared to him in the plains of Moreh. And he sat in the tent door in the heat of the day. And he lifted up his eyes, speaking of Abraham, and looked, and behold, 3 men stood by him. And when he saw them, he ran to meet them from the tent door and bowed himself toward the ground. As soon as Abraham seen these men, undoubtedly he knew who these men were. He knew they were not just 3 men that were lost. He knew they were not 3 renegades that might come and rob him, or 3 shepherds that were looking for shelter. No, he knew what these 3 men were. And watch what it says. And said, my master, if now I found favor in your sight. Now, how did he know? Why is he talking about finding favor in his sight? How did he know who this one was and he never seen him? Watch what it says. Pass not away, I pray you, from your servant. He knew. Abraham knew exactly who he was. Not only who showed up to him, but Abraham knew who he was. And what was Abraham? Abraham was his servant. The very thing that nobody else want to be. They talk about being a servant of the Most High, but they're no servant at all. They don't even think like a servant. And surely they don't have a heart of a servant, because I'm going to show you the heart of a servant and why Yahweh would even call you a servant. And if you're not doing the things and thinking the way that a servant is supposed to act and think, then how can you call yourself a servant of Yahweh? Watch what Abraham would do. And said, my master, if not I found favor in your sight, pass not away, I pray you, from your servant. Let a little water, I pray you, be fetched, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree. Did not it say 3 men stood by him? 3 men showed up to him. 3 men approached to him. And here it is, Abraham, being the master of his own house, is talking about washing 3 men's feet. What kind of servant to do that? A bona fide true servant. Someone that understands what a servant is. That's who Abraham was. This is his first encounter with the Most High and angels physically. Watch what it says. And I will fetch a morsel of bread and comfort you your hearts. After that you shall pass on. For therefore have you come to your servant. And they said, so do as you have said. And Abraham hastened into the tent to Sarah and said, make ready quickly 3 measures of fine meal, knead it, make cakes on the hearth. And Abraham ran to the herd and fetched a calf tender and good, gave it to a young man, and he hurried to dress it. And he took butter and milk and the calf which he had dressed, set it before them, and he stood by them under the tree, and they did eat. But you notice, he didn't send nobody to wash their feet. And why? Because that's what he would do. Because he knew exactly who he was. He was a servant, which became a servant of Yahweh. And our people don't have this type of heart. And if you understand the heart, this is exactly the type of heart that all our fathers that were able to come before Yahweh, that were able to see Yahweh, that sat down and ate bread with Yahweh, that walked with Yahweh. This is the attitude. This is the behavior. This is the conduct that they possess. And where did they possess it? In their heart. Our people today not only think they masters, think they kings and queens. I'm a king. I'm a queen. I'm a prince. And they got all these flattering titles. But yet, the greatest title you can have is a servant. And there's nothing more humble than a servant, unless you are an Israelite. Watch what the scripture says so you can understand the type of heart that you're supposed to have. Not only our people don't act like a servant, they don't even want to be called a servant. Abraham called himself a servant. Watch this in the book of Genesis, the 15th chapter. In the book of Genesis, the 15th chapter, starting at the 13th verse, at this time, all Abraham wanted, all he desired, was to have a seed, a child, an offspring, someone that would inherit, be his inheritor. That's what he wanted. And Yahweh said, look, I'm going to give you that. And your inheritance and your inheritors shall be the stars of heaven. But watch what else he tell Abraham in the 13th verse. Genesis 15 and 13. And he said to Abram, know for certain that your seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge. And afterwards shall they come out with great substance. What did the children of Israel do at this time? That they had to serve their enemies, and that they will be afflicted by their enemies for 400 years. You know this ain't talking about Egypt, because that didn't happen in Egypt. Anybody that tell you otherwise is just a lie. They know this didn't happen in Egypt. No matter what scheme they come up with, it didn't happen. But it did happen today, where our people have been in a land that is not theirs, and they have served their enemies for every bit of 400 years. And we're not quite there yet, but we almost are. But why would this be a prophecy? Why would Yahweh give this prophecy to Abraham about his children, seeing he had no children and he went for no children? Why would he have this horrible dream? Well, Yahweh, yes, he knew that our people one day will sin, and they will be chased and casted and cast out the land that Yahweh gave to our people through the promise of our fathers. Yes, he knew that. But the reason why Yahweh will cast our people out is one reason and one reason only. Is because our people refuse to serve Yahweh with all their heart and with all their soul. In other words, they refuse to be a servant of Yahweh. Can you imagine you being in your master's house and you living in that house, and you supposed to do what your master says, and your master say, look, I want you to make that dinner, I want you to clean that kitchen, and I want you to make sure all this trash is out. And every day you come home and you heed your master's instructions. And every day you come home and you his servant. The trash ain't taken out, the food ain't made, and the dishes ain't done. And you gonna say as a master, what is this you doing? Did not I tell you to make the food and do the dishes and take out the trash? And you being a servant say, look, man, I was tired today. Why don't you make the food today? Why don't you take out the trash today? And why don't you wash the dishes today? Can y'all even conceive a servant saying that to his master? Or you come home, the trash ain't taken out, the dishes is not done, the food is not cooked, and your servant left the house and went partying or went shopping, but left to do his own thing. Come back when he want to and go to bed. Can y'all even imagine that happening in your house? Well, that's exactly the type of servants Yahweh have. Servants who are servants, who supposed to be servants. They're not masters at all. They're servants, but then, and they live in a place that Yahweh gave them, a house that Yahweh built for them, and all Yahweh say, look, keep my commandments, keep my laws, statutes, and judgments, and yet you would act like you the master of your own destiny, and that you don't have to keep his laws. You don't have to keep his commandments, statutes, and judgments. You can do what you want to do because you're not a servant anyway. You're a master. You're a master of your own destiny. And Yahweh looking at you like, these people got to be crazy. Shall the clay say to the potter, what hast thou done? Hast thou formed me, made me? That don't make sense for a clay to say to the potter, who made me? And what is this you made? But this is what Yahweh people will say to him. Watch what this says. Watch the law in the book of Deuteronomy, the 10th chapter. And our problem is and have always been that we refuse to have a heart of a servant. We don't even want to be called servants. Yahweh asks us a very important question. He said, is Israel a servant or a homeborn slave? We will rather be a homeborn slave than to be a servant. And we know we will rather be a homeborn slave because we find ourselves slaves in other people's land just to learn the lesson of being a servant. Watch what it says in the book of Deuteronomy, the 10th chapter, the 12th verse. And now, Israel, what does Yahweh your Elohim require of you? This is a requirement. But to fear Yahweh your Elohim. That's the first thing. To walk in all his ways, that's number 2. And to love him, which is number 3. And watch number 4 and 5. And to serve Yahweh, your Elohim, with all your heart and with all your soul. And of course, 6 and 7, to keep the commandments of Yahweh and his statutes, which I command you this day for your good. This is all for your good. But we don't want to serve Yahweh because we don't want to be servants. We don't have the heart of a servant. But that's exactly the type of heart that Yahweh is looking for. That is the heart of someone that's humble, that's ready and willing and prepared to work for someone else other than themselves. And too many of us, the mass majority of us, the only thing we're prepared to do is to tell people what we want and what we ain't going to do. Watch what the law says in the book of Exodus, the 23rd chapter. Here it is. Yahweh made us. Yahweh called us servants. But we going to tell Yahweh we don't have to serve you. We don't have to do what you say. Watch what it says in the book of Exodus 23. The 9th verse. Also, this is a law. You shall not oppress a stranger, for you know the heart of a stranger. You know the heart of a stranger. You know how I feel to be a stranger. Seeing you were strangers in the land of Egypt. You were strangers in the land of Egypt. So you know the heart of a stranger. You know what it means. When you're in somebody else's land, you follow their rules. When you're in somebody else's land, you do what they say. When you're in somebody else's house, you subject to their rules. And so what do you have to do? You either follow the instructions or get out the land. You follow the instructions or get out their house. You don't disrespect somebody else's house and disrespect somebody else's land. No, you follow their rules. Because undoubtedly, you in that land, you in their house for a reason. Because undoubtedly, you were not blessed, or you could not live independently of other people. And now, you got to serve them. And our people lived in Egypt, serving Egypt. Now I can understand why Yahweh said this in the book of Deuteronomy, the 23rd chapter. Watch what he says. Deuteronomy 23. And one of my beloved brothers asked me this question, and I searched it out. And let me tell you what the answer is, my brother Amasa. And I'm sorry I couldn't call you. But watch what it says in the book of Deuteronomy 23, verse 7. Watch this law. This is a law. It says, you shall not abhor an Edomite. In other words, it's letting you know that you're not to despise and you're not to hate. You're not to abhor an Edomite. And why don't you hate and abhor an Edomite? For he is your brother. See, if you take this scripture and go to the concordance, it'll say, well, this was an error. It shouldn't be an Edomite. It should be an Assyrian or Syrian. Because the Syrians was our family members also. It said Abraham was a Syrian, or his family was Syrians, part Syrian. So in the concordance, it'll say, no, this is not an Edomite. This is a Syrian that this should say. Well, the concordance is wrong. It should be an Edomite, just like it's saying. And why? And how do I know that? How can I prove that? Well, the reason I can prove it, because in the scriptures, the series was never called our brother. Anytime it talk about Edom, it talk about him being our brother. That's your brother, so don't hate him. If you go to the book of ObediYAH, it'll talk about your brother Esau, your brother Edom. Now, if it called the other people our brother, then you got a point. But this is talking about our brother. And Esau is our brother. And particularly Jacob. And we're going to read that. So that's how I know this is correct. But it don't hate him. And why don't Yahweh want you to hate Esau? Your brother, who done just did all kind of vile things against our people. Probably our number one enemy. Because Yahweh is not the author of confusion. He said, don't hate your brother in your heart. And he wasn't going to have you not hate one brother, but hate the other brother. In other words, he didn't want you to hate your brother, period. Period. You can love this brother, but hate your other brother. No. We had a law. Love thy neighbor as you love yourself, and hate not thy brother in thy heart. And Yahweh has already called Esau our brother. He didn't have to call him our brother. He could have called him our cousin. But he called him our brother. And watch what it says in the very next verse. You shall not abhor an Egyptian. Why not, Yahweh? Because you were a stranger in his land. Man, you lived in this man's house. You lived in his land. You had the best of Egypt. Your father ruled Egypt for many years. And then you're going to turn around and hate him? How you think you was fed? Land of Egypt. Where did you learn and grow and develop and raise your children? Egypt. But then you'll turn around and hate it. I can understand some people hating Egypt because we were afflicted at a certain point in time. But that wasn't because of Egypt. That was because Yahweh wanted his name to be planted in the earth. And Yahweh don't think like us. Yahweh ways are not like us. So, but Yahweh told us, don't abhor Egyptian. You was a stranger in this land. In other words, what is that really telling us? That if we don't, then we will honor and respect and value our position that we held in Egypt. And let me tell you what our position was. We were servants. Just like we are now. Israel have always found themselves in all these captivities. Captivity after one after another. And why? Because we still have not learned the ultimate lesson of captivity. Yahweh says, since we will not serve him with joyfulness of heart and the abundance of all things, he said we will serve our enemies for want of everything. Because Yahweh is trying to teach us how to be his servants. And you cannot be Yahweh's servant without having a heart of a servant. Too many people want to be a king and a queen and masters of their own destiny. And nobody want to be a servant. And Yahweh is looking for a servant. That's what he's looking for. Watch what the scriptures say. Ask yourself, are you better than Moses? Are you greater than Moses? Look what Yahweh said about Moses. In the book of Deuteronomy 34, watch what it says. This is what Yahweh said about Moses, his servant. Deuteronomy 34. And we're going to read verse 4 and 5. And Yahweh said to him, this is the land which I swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, saying, I will give it to your seed. I've caused you to see it with your eyes, but you shall not go over there. So Moshe, the servant of Yahweh, died there in the land of Moab, according to the word of Yahweh. What did he call Moses? He called Moses his servant. And watch what it says about this servant Moses. Watch what it says. And he buried him in a valley in the land of Moab, over against Beth Peor. But no man knows of his scepter unto this day. And Moshe was 120 years old when he died. His eye was not dim, nor his natural force abated. And the children of Israel wept for Moshe in the plains of Moab 30 days. So the days of weeping and mourning for Moshe were ended. And Yehoshua the son of Nun was full of the spirit of wisdom, for Moshe had laid his hands upon him. And the children of Israel listened to him and did as Yahweh commanded Moshe. And watch this. And there arose not a prophet since in Israel, like unto Moshe, whom Yahweh knew face to face, in all the signs and the wonders which Yahweh sent him to do in the land of Egypt to Pharaoh, and to all his servants, and to all his land, and in all the mighty hand, and in all the great terror which Moshe showed in the sight of all Israel. There was no prophet like this who Yahweh knew face to face. And why would Yahweh even allow this man to sing face to face? Because this man knew how to be a servant. He had the heart of a servant. This is the type of man that today, here it is, Yahweh said, accept of our punishment and confess our iniquities. And I'm going to show you this. But Moses didn't question Yahweh. What Yahweh said, Moses did. And you can do it also. But you're not going to do it because you think you're better than a servant. You don't even want to be called a servant, let alone act like a servant, because you think that's beneath you. So you're not going to try to develop that type of heart. You will say you're a servant of Yahweh, but you will do none of the service that Yahweh told his servants to do. And I'm going to show you the things that Yahweh told his servants to do. And you just not going to do it. All you got to do is look at David. King David said, I'd rather be a doorkeeper in the house of Yahweh. And all the doorkeeper got to do, open up the door for people, greet them. Shalom, how you doing? Shalom, come on in, praise Yah. Another person, Shalom, how you doing? Come on in, praise Yah. That's all a doorkeeper got to do. Put a smile on his face. Greet the people. When I was growing up, you didn't even have to push the elevator button to the floor you wanted by yourself. They had elevator men, doormen. And you go in the elevator, they push the number that you want to go, and you can ride up. And every time, whether you spoke or not, the elevator man spoke to you. How you doing? Have a nice day. Shalom. What floor you going to? Because this was their service. You used to pull up to the airport. You have a man called Skycap, and they will run out to your car, get your bags, whether you wanted them or not. There was a time where you pull up to the gas tank. They will open up the gas tank, put the thing in. You didn't even have to do nothing. You didn't have to speak. They start cleaning your windshield wipe, everything. They served. Regardless if you was mad or happy. Regardless if it was raining or sunshine. But not our people. Our people fair weather to Yahweh. They refuse to be a servant. And that's why we find ourselves in captivity. Time after time after time. So Yahweh can teach us how to serve. Because if you're not going to serve Yahweh, you will serve your enemies. And that's what we're doing today. You act like you're not serving your enemies, but you are. Soon as your enemies start telling you to do such and such, get up at 8 and be here. You up at 8 and you be there. Just like the master says. But watch what it says in Deuteronomy, the 9th chapter. In the book of Deuteronomy 9. That's why Yahweh said, if it had been any other people, and I gave them my word, they would listen. They will hearken. Here these foreigners come over here, they do everything they told to do. But not Israel. Watch what this says. In the book of Deuteronomy 9, and we're going to start reading at the 24th verse. Watch what Moses says. You have been rebellious against Yahweh from the day that I knew you. Soon as I knew you and met you, you was rebellious from that day. Thus, I fell down before Yahweh 40 days and 40 nights. As I fell down at the first, because Yahweh has said he would destroy you. In other words, 40 days and 40 nights, Moses on his face, Moses fasting, Moses won't eat, Moses won't drink nothing. Not because he was rebellious, because our people was rebellious. And because Yahweh said he will destroy you. And watch what it says. I prayed therefore unto Yahweh and said, O Yahweh, Yahweh, destroy not your people and your inheritance, which you have redeemed through your greatness, which you have brought forth out of Egypt with a mighty hand. And watch this, because this is the key. Watch this. 27th verse. He said, remember your servants, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Look not to the stubbornness of this people, nor to their wickedness, nor to their sin. In other words, Yahweh, don't think about them. Because if you think about them, if you look to them, you're going to kill them, Yahweh. You're going to destroy them, Yahweh. Just remember, blot them out of your mind, Yahweh, and remember thy servant Abraham, thy servant Isaac, thy servant Jacob. Think about them. Don't think about your people. Look not to their stubbornness. Look not to their wickedness or to their sin. Lest the land wherefrom you brought us out say, because Yahweh was not able to bring them into the land which he promised them, and because he hated them, he has brought them out to slay them in the wilderness. In other words, now they're going to start rumor mongering about you, Yahweh. And we don't want this type of rumor about you. We know there's nothing too hard for you. We know you can bring them anywhere you want them to be. So please, Yahweh, look not on their stubbornness. Look not to these people. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, your servant. Now, why would Yahweh remember them instead of looking at the stubbornness of our people? Because they were true servants. They knew how to serve Yahweh. Because they had the heart of a servant. They didn't have this attitude and behavior that they were kings and queens of the earth. Their attitude was one of humility, that they were servants in the earth. Servants of Yahweh. Not some king and queen and somebody that's propped up and over everybody. They didn't even call themselves these things. They had not this attitude. This is the attitude and the behavior of other people. And now our people got it. Yet they are your people, your inheritance, which you brought out by your mighty power and by your stretched out arm. Yes, remember Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Because if Yahweh have to think one moment on our people, they're going to be destroyed. They will be destroyed because they don't have the heart of a servant. Somebody asked a long time ago, why is our people so rebellious? Because they refuse to have a heart of a servant. They refuse to be a servant. They want to be higher than a servant. And they don't even realize that Yahweh don't see as man see. Yahweh has great value in one being a servant. The only people look down on a servant is our people. Watch the scriptures. Leviticus 26. Why I got Yahweh said, thy desire shall be to your husband, and he shall rule over you. Well, why I can't have my own desires? That's not a servant. Why would you question Yahweh? So all my desires got to be to him? And Yahweh, look at my goodness, man, you the servant. You're supposed to be my servant. That's like Yahweh saying, look, do the dishes. I got to do all the dishes? Yahweh? All of them? I mean, all of them? You see why Yahweh look at our people just, my goodness. He just shake his head. Watch what it says. Leviticus, the 26th chapter. The 40th verse. Watch what it says. If they shall confess their iniquity and the iniquity of their fathers with their trespass, which they have trespassed against me, and that also they have walked contrary to me, and that I also have walked contrary to them, and have brought them into the land of their enemies. If then their uncircumcised hearts are humbled, and they then accept of the punishment of their iniquity. And what was the punishment of their iniquities? All the punishment of our iniquities is to serve our enemies. That's what it was. Nothing bigger, nothing smaller, to serve our enemies, because we didn't serve Yahweh and we refused to accept that. But watch what it says. Then, because if you do that, then will I remember my covenant with Jacob, also my covenant with Isaac, also my covenant with Abraham will I remember, and I will remember the land. In other words, what Yahweh is saying, if you accept your punishment, I'm still not going to think about you, because then I get right back to your iniquities. Then I start thinking right back at your uncircumcised heart. But if you humble yourself, now I can remember the covenant that I made with your fathers. Why? Because they were true servants. They were the type of servants that I made covenants with, that I promised things to. They the type of servants that actually serve me to get things out of me. So let my mind and heart be on them rather than be on you and your iniquities and your uncircumcised heart. Then I'll remember my covenant. And you want Yahweh to remember the covenant that he made with our fathers. Watch what it says, 43. The land also shall be left to them, and shall enjoy her Sabbaths, which while she lies desolate without them, and they shall accept of the punishment of their iniquities, because they despise my judgments, and because their soul abhorred my statutes. And yet for all that, when they are in the land of their enemies, I will not cast them away. In other words, you really should be destroyed at this point. At this time, our people should be destroyed. But Yahweh, because of his mercy's sake, not because of us, because of his righteousness' sake, not because of us, because of his name's sake, not because of us, he won't cast us off. He's got to think about other things just to save us. He's got to remember other things because we refuse to be a servant. Watch what it says. Psalm 132. Because I want you to understand the type of heart that Yahweh has. Here, our people be fighting with one another, arguing with one another, as if one is better than the other. And all you are is supposed to be a servant of Yahweh. And if you're doing what Yahweh said, you wouldn't even be fighting with one another. Watch what it says. Or less you are rebellious. And Moses said, you've been rebellious since the day I knew you. Watch what it says. Psalms 132. And I'm going to start reading at the 10th verse. Watch what the psalmist says. For your servant David's sake, turn not away the face of your anointed. Why for David's sake? In other words, many of our people, they will plead their own cause, but use someone else to save their life. For your servant David's sake, turn not away the face of your anointed. Yahweh has sworn in truth unto David, and he will not turn from it. Of the fruit of your body will I set upon your throne. And why? For David's sake. Because many of David's sons was wicked that came from him. But because of David's sake, Yahweh never destroyed and cast away the seed or the throne. And why? Because David's heart was perfect with Yahweh. And what was this perfect heart that David had? David was a servant. He knew how to serve Yahweh. Just like a servant know how to do his job, David did his job for Yahweh. He was a servant. What do you think a servant is? A servant is no big glorified title. A servant is no different from a barmaid, no different from a waiter, no different from somebody greeting you at Walmart. It's a job of service that you must do with all your heart and with all your soul. And the question is, why do you refuse to do it? Why would you rebel against your own self? Not only that, go to the book of Isaiah 37, speaking about David. Isaiah 37. And I'm going to start reading at the 33rd verse. Therefore, thus says Yahweh concerning the king of Assyria, he shall not come into the city, nor shoot an arrow there, nor come before it with shields, nor cast a bank against it, because this is what Assyria said. We coming to get y'all during the time of Hezekiah. But Yahweh said, not so. 34th verse. By the way that he came, by the same shall he return, and shall not come into this city, says Yahweh. But why? Why were you turning back, Yahweh? 35th verse. For I will defend this city to save it for my own sake and for my servant David's sake. In other words, there was nobody in that city really deserved to be saved. None of them. So for David's sake and for Yahweh's own sake, he kept the city. And why would he do it for his own sake? Because Yahweh is perfect. And why did he do it for David's sake? Because David's heart is perfect. And that's what Yahweh would do for the righteous and for his servants that have circumcised their heart to serve him, because they have developed the right type of heart. And what type of heart is that? A servant. No wonder Yahweh said this in the book of Deuteronomy, the 16th chapter, if you turn there. And you read this all through the scriptures. Deuteronomy 16. And watch what it says. And we're going to start reading. Twelfth verse. And you shall remember that you were a bondman in Egypt, and you shall observe and do these statutes. And why do Yahweh want us to remember to be somebody's slave, to be somebody's servant? Because little do we know, this is the one thing that we never valued. And this is the one thing that Yahweh wanted us to value. Because Yahweh is looking for a servant. He's not looking for a rebel that refused to listen to his commands, who refused to do what he said do. He's looking for a servant. And how hard is it to be a servant? Well, it's not hard at all if you have the heart to serve. And people just talk about the type of heart they have. But actions speak louder than words. And Yahweh is looking for a certain type of heart. While you fighting with your husband, what you showing Yahweh is that you're not willing to serve me. Because your husband ain't gave you no laws, no commandments, no statutes, or no judgments. Yahweh gave you that. And while you fighting with your wife, and while you fighting with your enemies, here it is, our people always talking about the white man this and the white man that. Yahweh put you in this land to serve your enemies and the strangers, because you refuse to serve him. And now that you in the land of your enemies, you refuse to serve them after he told you to accept of your punishment. Because if you accepted your punishment, you know what you would do? Serve your enemies. And then you will know now it's better to serve Yahweh. Because your enemies will have you do some vile, wicked things. But Yahweh will have you do some good, wholesome, and righteous things. And watch this. Proverbs 31. And we've been talking about Proverbs 31. And why? Because this is the chapter that not only talk about a king, but talk about a virtuous woman, which no woman seemed to want to be. Now you can debate me. Yeah, I want to be. How you know what I want to be? Only Yahweh know the heart. Because action speak louder than words. Don't tell me, show me. Who are you, IshiYAH, that I got to show you? Well, you don't have to show me, but you still got to show somebody. How else would anybody know? The Almighty told us to look unto the rock from whence we were hewn. And who was that rock? Abraham and Sarah. But you don't want us to look at you. But yet, we got to look at Abraham and Sarah. And when we looked at them, they were perfect. But when we look at you, we see something totally different. We don't see Abraham and we don't see Sarah. And this is why. Proverbs 31:10. And watch what it says. Who can find a virtuous woman? For her price is far above rubies. The heart of her husband do safely trust in her, so that he shall have no need of spoil. And I always wonder, why wouldn't he need anything? Why do he safely trust her? And the next verse explains it. She will do him good and not evil all the days of her life. Now, why would she do such a thing? Have you ever seen a woman not do a man no evil? Her husband no evil? Yes, I have. In the scriptures. And why? Because this woman, she was a servant of Yahweh. This woman was not serving her husband. She was serving Yahweh. That's why it didn't matter. This man is no name. He don't even have a name. Because it don't matter who he is. Whether he's Nabal or Abraham. She still did not do him no evil all the days of her life. Because she served Yahweh. And to serve Yahweh, all you need to know is his commandments. She seeks wool and flax and works willingly with her hands. She is like the merchant ships. She brings her food from afar. She rises also while it is yet night, and give food to her household and a portion to her maidens. Now, why would a woman that is over her maidens get them food? Because she is a servant. In other words, how can you run a household without being the example of what you want to be seen? And a lot of people, they looking for things, fairy tale things. And they always worried about somebody else. What you doing for me? What did you say to me? What did you get for me? How did you treat me? Rather than how you supposed to serve them. Now, your behavior, your countenance, and the complexity of your heart and soul have been taken away from Yahweh. And you have no one to blame but yourself. Why? Because you refuse to be Yahweh's servant. And a virtuous woman. Watch what it says about this woman. And for time purposes, I'm going to go down. Watch what it says. '29th verse. Or the 28th verse. Her children will rise up and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praises her. Many daughters have done virtuously, but you excel them all. You above all these women. They do virtuous in this, and they do virtuous in that, but not you. You do virtuously in everything. And there's only one word that I can call you because you do virtuously in everything. A virtuous woman. So women, stop calling yourself virtuous women unless you do virtuous things in all things. You just say, well, I'm virtuous in this and I'm virtuous in that. Because this woman excels them all. Favor is deceitful because she ain't about doing favors. Beauty is vain and she ain't about that. But a woman that fears Yahweh, she shall be praised. Give her of the fruit of her hands and let her own works praise her in the gate. In other words, let this woman rise to the stars of heaven and let her own hands and her own works. What type of works? Her work or service. Let her be the servant that Yahweh want her to be. That's what you do as a servant. You work, not for yourself, but you work for others. All through the scriptures, I want you to see what Yahweh, how he will look at his people. Because see, at the end of the day, Yahweh said he looketh on the heart, the inward parts. He said man looketh on the outer appearance, but Yahweh looketh on the heart. And Yahweh is going to try the heart. Yahweh is going to search the heart to give every man according to his doings or according to his ways and the fruit of his doing. That's what Yahweh is going to do. Yahweh is all about the heart. Therefore, Yahweh is looking for a certain type of heart. And I want you to see what that heart is. Watch what it says. Isaiah 41. And unfortunately, this is not the type of heart Yahweh is getting. It's not too late, though. It's not too late. But there's a time limit. To everything there's a time. That's what Yahweh said. Watch what it says in the book of Isaiah 41. And watch what it says in the 8th verse. But you, Israel, are my servant, Jacob, whom I've chosen, the seed of Abraham, my friend. You whom I have taken from the ends of the earth and called you from the chief men thereof. And said unto you, watch what Yahweh said. You are my servant. I've chosen you and not cast you away. Here it is. The very thing that Yahweh sees as good, that Yahweh excited to call you. Yahweh didn't call you no kings and queens of the earth. Yahweh wanted you to be a humble lamb to him. So what did he call you? A servant. And he called you from the chief men of the earth just to call you and choose you to be and to make you a servant. And that's beneath you. And that's too low for you. And that's not high enough for you. But that's exactly what Yahweh wants. Watch what he said. Isaiah 42. The very first verse. Behold my servant, whom I uphold, my elect, in whom my soul delights. I put my spirit upon him. He shall bring forth judgment to the Gentiles. He shall not cry, nor lift up, nor cause his voice to be heard in the street. A bruised reed shall he not break, and the smoking flax shall he not quench. He shall bring forth judgment unto truth. He shall not fail, nor be discouraged, till he has set judgment in the earth, and the isles shall wait for his law. Who is this? Yahweh's servant. Yahweh's servant. His little humble servant. That's who this is. Something that nobody want to be. Watch what it says. In Isaiah 43. The 10th verse. You are my witnesses, says Yahweh, and my servant, whom I've chosen, that you may know and believe me and understand that I am he. Before me there was no Elohim formed, neither shall there be after me. I am Yahweh, and beside me there is no Savior. I've declared and have saved and have shown when there was no strange Elohim among you. Therefore you are my witnesses, says Yahweh, that I am Elohim. Who is he talking to? Who is he calling out to? Who is he reaching to? His servant. And what is a
90
servant?
seconds.
A servant is somebody who has consecrated their heart to serve. Not no kings and queens and all this hierarchy. Just a little humble servant. That's what Yahweh wants. Isaiah 44, verse 1. Yet now hear, O Yaakov, my servant, and
60
Israel,
seconds.
whom I've chosen. Thus is Yahweh that made you, formed you from the womb, which will help you. Fear not, O Yaakov, my servant, and you, Yesharon, whom I have chosen. You're my servant. And watch what it says in Isaiah 49, the last scripture. First verse. Listen, O isles, unto me, and listen, you people from afar.
10
Yahweh
seconds.
has called me from the womb. From the bowels of my mother has he made mention of my name. And he has made my mouth like a sharp sword. In the shadow of his hand has he hidden me, and made me a polished shaft. In his quiver has he hidden me, and said unto me, You are my servant, O Israel, in whom I will be glorified. Then I said, I've labored in vain. I spent my strength for nothing and in vain, because I've been doing everything, walking around like I'm a king, like I'm a queen, like I'm the master, when I just should have been a servant. Surely my judgment is with Yahweh, and my work with my Elohim. And now says Yahweh, that formed me from the womb to be a servant, to bring Yaakov again to him. Though Israel is not gathered, yet shall I be glorious in the eyes of Yahweh, and my Elohim shall be my strength. And he said, it is a light thing that you should be my servant, to raise up the tribes of Yaakov, and to restore the preserve of Israel. That's a light thing, being my servant. I will also give you a light to the Gentiles, that you may be my salvation unto the end of the earth. Thus is Yahweh, Redeemer of Israel, his Holy One, to him whom man despises, to him whom the nation abhors. Why? To a servant of rulers. Kings shall see and arise. In other words, you just a servant. But kings, you're a servant of rulers. But kings shall see you and arise. Princes also shall worship you, and all you are is a servant, because of Yahweh that is faithful, and the Holy One of Israel, and he shall choose you. That's the type of heart that Yahweh is looking for. He's looking for a heart of a servant that's willing to work, that's willing to serve, that's willing to do work or service for him. Not this big king and queen and master and all this mess that our people think they are. You're a servant. Act like a servant and stop being rebellious. But the choice is yours. Yahweh have shown you what he desires. Yahweh have shown you what he requires. Is Israel a servant, or Israel a home-born slave? It's up to you. Until tomorrow, Yahweh love you, and so do I. Shalom.
so it can be confirmed. To you, my Yah, do I lift up my soul. And trusting you, he always kept me whole. And left my enemies deep in their holes. Let none that wait on Yahweh be ashamed. But shame on those who sin without a cause. Show me your ways, please teach me your laws. Oh Elohim of my salvation, I'm staying down impatient. As a child, all the while I'm waiting. Remember not the sins of my youth. Lead me in your truth, and he'll give your soul ease. The earth shall remain inherited by a seed. The secret of Yahweh who fears Elohim, who believes everything. And to every word spoken, you can't take heed unless you hear somebody curse. You know you did the same thing. That's why I'm begging Yah for mercy and His love and kindness, cause I know that I ain't worthy.
Thank you for using Blog Talk.